Welcome, everyone. Come on in. So, welcome to our Body Temple monthly community fire ceremony. Really nice to be here with you all. If you want to get yourselves set up, you can have a candle or a fire if you can have a fire safely. We will be doing offerings to a fire, but if you can't have a fire that you can put offerings towards, you can definitely utilize the community fire here with your imagination, because as we know, our imagination is one of the ways that our body speaks and heals. And you can also have a candle, and you could, be doing the mantra, meditating on the candle. So I'll share and we'll share a little bit more about the particular mantra that we're doing today, but we'd love to just hear from you in the chat, or if you can turn your camera on just to say hello, and then you can always turn it off. I always like welcoming people to do that because sometimes we don't remember that we can turn on and off if we want. But you can, if you want to just say hi in the beginning, just to like see who's here to help support our hi Erin community vibe. Hi Jasmine, welcome. Um, who else? Carmen is here. I see Sid. Chrissy, hi Jackie. And please put in the chat if you're open to it where you are in the world, or you can put in the chat something that you're really wanting to offer prayers for or to today. Maybe a little bit about your intention for coming, for being here. And, we'll dig into that more deeply as we go along. But just to give yourselves a little orientation into the space, into the community, as soon as we gather, right, we start like sinking into this cauldron, this very potent medicine, that we get to receive and that we also get to hold space for in our collective. I know that Alex, some of us were in person on a retreat a couple weekends ago, or I don't know how long ago. It doesn't matter. And we did this ritual because when we do in-person stuff, we're obviously doing more physical ritual. And Alex do you want to just share, Alex, just what you shared with me, just because you could say it.
Yes. So, hi. Um, I have our prayers, which had a prayer on one side, and then it's everyone from the retreat. And on the other side, we wrote a letter to our shameless one. And I took these precious things home with me, and I'm going to burn them in the fire in the ceremony, as well as these two roses from the retreat. And we have wood here that's local from Maine and from the land here. And then I will be collecting the ash. And if anyone wants some of the sacred ash from who is there for the Temple of Shakti, I'll send it to you if you want to send me your address. And then you can have it for your altar or for any, ritual that you do.
Thank you, Alex. Do you want to share just briefly about what the shameless one is, or what, just in your own words?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience that I had at the weekend, it's hard to say retreat because it doesn't feel like a retreat. It feels like I'm lining up, like I'm getting prepared. Um, but there's nourishment and rest as well during the retreat. So for me, the shameless one, really what came through is how well and how connected she is to what is morally right and justice. And I had realized that I had cut myself off from her. I had buried her. I'd killed her at one point out of safety. And but she really like that was something, that a power that she has, that I was disconnecting from by not acknowledging her. Um, and rightfully so, because at one point it was out of safety, right? So that's what this shameless one meant to me, and that's what I tried to express in my 3 minutes of fame there.
Love
Right.
that. Yeah, and I think just like for all of us, because like some of us obviously were there, but probably most people here weren't there live. And I think today we're focusing on the goddess Saraswati. And thank you so much, Alex, and thank you for offering that. Um, for each of us, right? Like we have a version of what Alex was sharing, and we did an exercise where Harshada, who's going to be here in a moment, really guided us into this inner experience of, connecting to that one and just starting to, or nurturing if we already have a relationship to the shameless one within us, as well as, the moments in our lives when, that experience of shamelessness has gotten blocked, or small moments, not like our biggest traumas, but looking at these little moments where we kind of have had to restrict out of safety, right? Like anytime we restrict, anytime we constrict, even shame itself is actually a really powerful protection mechanism that we need, and we needed at one point, to survive, right? To be able to still be here and be alive. We actually needed that constriction. And in this process, through Tantra and through, all the different ways that we work together and come together in ceremony, we're learning how to de-armor. We're learning how to soften in the places that are ready, and acknowledge that deep truth of who we've always been. We were born into this world shameless, right? And that was one of the things that we were connecting to. So it's very deep, kind of early, childhood, energy. And because these are the things that affect our relationships, right? These are the things that affect our expression in the world, which is obviously needed in different ways for each of us. So I'm just going to pause as we're, winding into, our preparations over here, and just take a moment to write in your journal or write in the chat what's coming up for you around this. When we look at Saraswati as the intuitive wisdom of nature, which is how one of my teachers, our teacher Sally Kempton, used to talk about her, the intuitive nature, the intuitive wisdom of nature, right? And in this work, through activating the elements and our elemental nature, as well as worshiping elements like fire, feeding the sacred fire, which is a very obviously ancient practice that goes back to the beginning of humanity, right? And so the reverence and remembering the reverence that we can cultivate to the elements and to our own elemental nature, is so much of what she's about. So it's very primal. It's very, very like returning, in my experience, back to that intuitive flow that is wisdom, that is your intuition, right? And help us tease apart, even where we source our power from, and how we use our power, or how, we work with teasing apart what's ours and what isn't. I think for me, she really helps me just very naturally get in touch with my own creative impulse, and the ways that I can trust that is of service, and that can nurture me. Even if it's being of service to others, it's something that can nurture me as it's flowing. And we're moving from fixity to flow all the time in somatic work. That's the essence of somatic work. So, she plays a huge role in those experiences when we're in flow, right? And that doesn't always mean it's pleasant, or sometimes it can be unpleasant, to feel that energy of like, whoa, something's in me, right? And wants to be created, wants to be known, but yet it's not ready, or we're nurturing that seed in some way. Hi, Harshada.
Hi everybody.
Thank you for getting everything ready.
Happy Thursday. I just came from a little retreat. It was funny. It was supposed to be like a deep meditation and writing retreat, and I was going to work on a course and all these things. And I went and I had one day, and I just had to like make the cabin ready for the retreat. And it took me like half a day. And then I got into some great meditation, and then I went to bed, and I woke up the next day and I had a cold. And so then like a head cold. It made it so hard to meditate, and it messed up my voice, so I couldn't record anything for my course, and I didn't really feel like writing. So it's funny that then today we come here and we're coming into the Saraswati sacrifice.
Yeah. So I have a poem that I want to read, and then we're going to share a little bit more, but please utilize the chat, to just kind of get into community, or not. You can also just take this time to just like really go inward, turn your camera off, and, but go under, a shawl or a blanket and just like be in darkness, like use
Climb
this,
into a
there?
big,
like use this time in a way that's going to serve you. Because that's, ultimately what we're here for. And I'm just going to make sure. Okay. Um,
oh, that's nice, Rose. Thank you for sharing that.
okay. I'm going to read this poem, and then you have the, you want to share the other. Okay. Um, okay, so, I love this poem by Mary Oliver. I feel like Mary Oliver was such a master at, bringing the intuitive wisdom of nature into the spoken and into the word, in ways that we can relate to. And I believe, each of us is a writer at heart. Each of us can write to, writing has saved my life, and I feel like that is so connected to Saraswati for me, because she is music and poetry and the things that help us remember the deeper truths, the deeper meaning, help us remember like what is really here to support and love us, especially when we really need it. So she is oftentimes depicted in this way that's very kind of light and on a swan, but I also feel like, of course, there's many different aspects to her, and there is this kind of fierceness of like the grace that cuts through the wound, and helps us really extract the potent creative energy, from our wound. And so that's part of why I chose this poem. It's called Love Sorrow. Love sorrow, she is yours now, and you must take care of what has been given. Brush her hair, help her into her little coat, hold her hand, especially when crossing a street. For, think, what if you should lose her? Then you would be sorrow yourself. Her drawn face, her sleeplessness would be yours. Take care. Touch her forehead that she feel herself not so utterly alone. And smile that she does not altogether forget the world before the lesson. Have patience in abundance and do not ever lie or ever leave her even for a moment by herself, which is to say, possibly again abandoned. She is strange, mute, difficult, sometimes unmanageable, but remember, she is a child and amazing things can happen. And you may see, as the two of you go, walking together in the morning light, how little by little she relaxes. She looks about her. She begins to grow. And that's Love Sorrow by Mary Oliver. Still playing, I always do that.
Is it love sorrow or love sorrow? I think it's love sorrow.
Love Sorrow.
Love sorrow.
It's a debate we have in our house all the time.
It's just all about a little bit of emphasis.
I always like my emphasis. But I love this line. It's so deep, right? Like just, I felt like you were like, but just like, and smile that, she does not altogether forget the world before the lesson, right? Like there's something, just like so. And I love that she is strange, mute, difficult, sometimes unmanageable, but remember, she is a child. And just like to show us, right, like how poetry, like heals us. Mary Oliver wasn't a therapist, you know what I mean? Like she wasn't a somatic healer doing inner child work, but like you read that poem and you're like, Phew, okay. Like my whole relationship to sorrow, to the ways that, whatever I'm holding in my subconscious is changed now, just by receiving that medicine, yeah. And so like it shows us like the creative power of like what each of us are here to offer, even when it's just for ourselves, it's not just for, what we're selling or what we're being, or it's like really this like deep soul nourishment that comes from creating, right? And we have so many ways that we do that all the time. And mystics, and I wanted to you to share anything about this, but a lot of the mystics in our lineage, that come from India, I mean, they shared song as a way to transmit the energy of liberation and the truth that liberation and love are within and God are within. And it happened through song, right? And through poems. This is like, and many, obviously, saints and masters of traditions all over the world, and Sufism and, everywhere, right? That even Christianity, like Christian mystics, like this is how that movement of energy that transmitted the frequency that, God is within, God is love is within, how they shared that, So I know that you're somebody who's,
Can you write in there
yeah,
Sage Warrior by
Yeah.
Valerie Carr?
You're somebody who studied that for a really long time, so I'm curious what you have to say about it.
Yeah, it's funny. Saraswati is in many ways, that if there's a goddess that has blessed us, it's definitely Saraswati, and more than any. And in so many ways, in my mission as a teacher, Saraswati is such a central Shakti. And weirdly, it's like the least represented, like in our home. Like we have this goddess puja, and we have this huge Durga, and we have Kali and Mahalakshmi and all these different goddesses. And then this is our Saraswati.
Perfect.
Like literally, this is, and she's a beautiful little bronze Saraswati. It's actually good to be here today, Ma. The masters of my sort of contemporary lineage, my guru and the different teachers that were my instructional teachers, were all monks in the Saraswati order of sannyasis, which meant that they were monks, they were renunciates, but they were also intended to be scholarly in a certain way. They were, expected to be learned and articulate. And so obviously that has, a big part of my influence. And so every day when we were in the ashram being trained, before we would go and do our selfless service, which usually had something to do with teaching, we would sing this hymn together. Goes, Ya kundendu tushadahara davala ya shubhra vastravrta ya vina varadanda mandidakara ya shveta padmasana ya brahmachuta shankara prabhutibir deve sada vandita samam patu saraswati bhagavati nisheshajadyapaha. And what it means, that's the Sanskrit. What it means is, she who is as fair as a jasmine flower, the moon, or a garland of dewdrops. She who is adorned in pure white garments. She whose hand holds the veena, which is like it's an Indian stringed instrument. She who holds the veena and a boon-giving staff. She who sits on a white lotus, she who is always worshipped by Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. May that mother, Goddess Saraswati, protect me and remove my ignorance completely. And, I was thinking about it, and in the there's like this whole patriarchal thread of teaching that goes through every tradition, including this one. And so all of the goddesses at some point got assigned to their gods. So Lakshmi is with Vishnu, you know, Durga is with Shiva, and so is Kali, so is Uma, so is, you know, Shiva has lots of variations of that goddess. And Saraswati was put with Brahma because Brahma is the creator. But I feel like something gets there. There's a lot of static in those lines anyway, just because of the origin of it and the sort of like patriarchal thing of it. But in this particular thing, it's like, in my experience, the energy of Saraswati, yeah, it is the power of creation. You know, it's the power of like just something being created out of nothing sometimes. But when it comes to art, writing, speech, teaching, practical expressions of Saraswati, it's almost never out of the blue, right? It's almost never just pure, like from emptiness, and then this thing comes. Oftentimes what it is she's, you know, she's flow. That's what saras means. Saras means flow. She's the thing that flows things together. She's the energy that makes connections. I feel like in a lot of ways she's Mercury, you know. So like Mercury retrograde, sometimes there's this goopy, you know, Saraswati slowness that happens. But it's like the ability, because even like a painter that starts with a blank canvas, that's not zero, because the stretcher bars, the canvas, the white, you know, the gesso, it's called, if you put that on the canvas, the materials, all of that was already gathered. It's not just starting from, it's not a blank canvas. And I feel like that's what Saraswati energy, as I experience it as an artist and a teacher and a yogi, aspiring yogi anyway. It's like, I experience Saraswati in what somebody named as my MacGyver kink. Does anybody have a MacGyver kink? Like, it's the last minute and you've got to get this thing and that thing and like make something impossible happen at the last minute using like whatever resources are at hand. I definitely have that kink. And that is Saraswati, very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, you know, within the path of healing and this work that we're doing, the work that definitely is happening in Body Temple, but I think also in this Mahayoga work that I'm doing with people, there's something that is so beautifully independent about Saraswati. It's like there's something about the resourcefulness of it. There's something about that energy of Saraswati sometimes is what you have when you don't have anything else. You know, it's like Saraswati is there in creative cooking. It's like, what do you have? Well, I've got some potatoes and some onions and some garlic and, you know, one other thing. What can we make with that? And then it turns into something that's like nourishing, not just sustaining, that's the Lakshmi. Yeah. But it's like, it's also delicious. It's also like the love also flows through it.
And I love what you're saying about the, you know, like Bree was sharing in the chat, and I remember reading this too in Sally Kempton's book, Awakening Shakti, which everyone should definitely listen to or read if you haven't. But, you know, like Sally used to teach about how like a lot of women that are devotees of Saraswati are unpartnered, are not partnered. And, you know, Bree was just sharing how it's like reminding her of this, like the beauty of being in that.
Or walking on thin ice with their partner.
And like how lonely, like what you said of like, but it's also like there's a loneliness to it, you know. But then what clicked in my mind was like, oh my gosh, when you think about like a writing, like for me, like when I think about a writing project, it's like how many boundaries need to be set for you to, and how like you need to be alone, you know what I mean, to like create that writing project. You can't just be like tending to everything and everyone else all the time to like really be able to have that place for that energy to flow. And the same thing is true, like this comes through a lot in our work with women and people with vulvas, in the sacred sexuality work that we do, in the womb healer work. You know, we have a training session today, and it's the same kind of thing where it's like, you actually have to create that space that's just so you can access that flow that is connected to creation, right? Like a woman's ejaculate, oftentimes like this is so lost on us, because we know about how, the sperm moves through the ejaculate, you know what I mean? But when there's this creation of life that is connected to birth, there's a way.
Sense of humor is also just like the thoughts that pop into your head.
Yeah.
That's also Saraswati.
There's a way that, that the women's ejaculate is also a big part of, that creation, you know what I mean? And that's just like never a part of any story that we ever hear, you know what I mean? But it's equal, it's like completely aiding in that flow. And so when we think about even wanting to have, more flow and more juiciness in our bodies, in that way, or just more aliveness in our relationships when it comes to our eroticism and our sexuality, so often, and it's so counterintuitive for people to like go in and create it for themselves first, even though that is like the most effective way to do it, and because I've just seen it and I've experienced it so much, and it's so easy to kind of want to go out, you know what I mean? And be, in that, and also with nature, right? It's like getting into that lovership with nature, and receiving that flow and, being in tune with that. And when you were sharing about the, the practice of divination, I feel like is so Saraswati. It's like we have a huge, amazing bookshelf, and it's like in any given moment, like in the chaos, if you go and you grab a book, right, off of your bookshelf and you just like, asking, Goddess, for a message, and you just kind of flip through and you do a divination practice, or you just open it and you read it and you receive it, like that, all of that is her, you know what I mean? It's like going back to what resources, going back, I love that you use the word resource, because it's like, she is a resource. And I don't think it has to just be in isolation, right? Because that's like one part of it, but then we get to share that with others. We get to share that with our partners. We get to share that with other people when we're, creating whatever it is that we're creating. But there is oftentimes an isolation in part of that practice, just like, I guess, any spiritual practice.
Going back like 5 points in that 15 points, when you were talking about nature, that's the thing that even when you were talking about in like reproduction, it's like the cycles. Saraswati is cycles. Saraswati is flow. Saraswati is, just the cycles within our bodies, but then every single thing in the biological world has these cycles. And then beyond the biological world, just like out in the planets and astrology and all of this, everything moves together in this incredibly symphonic way. And that's all Saraswati too. And, if you think about it, there's like so much that requires us to have the boundaries that she was talking about in the creative process. But then there's also a piece of it of like surrender and like cultivating the ability to surrender and trust and, go with the flow and go with it when the flow is not flowing. Because that's part of every cycle too,
Yeah, I'm thinking of, when we do the fire ceremony in India, I'm just thinking about how infused with like I feel like so much of my ability to like channel through teaching really comes from her, like that is how I can just trust what I have to share, and that's enough, and that you'll receive what you need, and that you won't, and that it's not really about me, because it's like becoming a channel for that energy. And for me, the fire ceremonies that we do on our India pilgrimage, just like, I just feel like the transformation of those have really been a huge part of what has cleared my own voice and throat. Because I used to be very constricted, like unable to express, unable to like I would write and then read and like tremor the whole time I was reading what I wrote out loud, and I feel like she has been a huge part of what has healed and continues to help me keep feeling that trust that you're naming. But I think the fire ceremonies, because, the Brahmin there, he has, plants that are connected to every planet. And like, it's like so in flow in these like wild ways that your mind just like never thinks about, like we just think like, oh, I'm in flow and I feel good, or I'm not in flow and I feel bad. But that's just because like our flow is, confined to capitalism. You know what I mean? When you like open up your mind to like the planets and the plants and, animism and like the aliveness of everything, the flow becomes something much more expansive. I think that's true for pleasure too. Do you want to say anything about him? Because I just feel like I don't know why, but just intuitively, I'm like, oh my God, like he is such a Saraswati being, even though the fire is so fierce.
Super, super, super. Yeah, I think because like the ceremony that we do is just an informal ceremony. This is called duni. It's just, informal fire offering. But it comes from a tradition where they're very formulaic and very specific fire ceremonies. And so on our India retreat, one of the things we do is we have this beautiful, beautiful firekeeper who, is incredibly learned and just super, super pure being that conducts this fire ceremony for us. And it's like what they do is they invoke, this is very quickly, but they invoke the energy of all the 9 planets. They invoke the energy of our well ancestors. They banish away all of the sort of like negative energies and demons. They call in the energy of Ganesha always. And then whatever other deities that are specifically being sacrificed to at that time, elaborately. This is before they even light the fire. It goes on and on and on. And then they light the fire and we make the offerings. And it's like the difference, and I think that these prayers are very important too, but it's the difference between all of that and then you say a prayer. And you've also gone on a pilgrimage, halfway across the world, and you've also, all of the other things. So the prayer that you make in that moment is so like rocket fueled compared to the prayer when you're in the kitchen and you're yelling at your kids to get their shoes on and you're putting this sandwich together and you can't find your glasses, and then you look up and Lakshmi is there in the kitchen and you just like say a quick prayer to Lakshmi and then you go back to the thing. It's like that prayer is very important, but that's just like a little compared to a ritualized sort of a connection. And I think that that's, Saraswati is technology in that sense, in the Aquarian sense of it, of like, okay, so go to a beautiful place in nature and like just turn your phone off on the way there. And then you go there and then you let yourself like connect to the sorrow in your life and you let yourself cry. And then you go and from that place, then you just think about what do you really want to pray for? And then you breathe consciously for a little while. And then you offer a prayer. And then you make a vow. And then you walk back. It's like that sort of a focused thing. It's not that God is closer at that moment in nature or at that place in the fire pit than God is in the kitchen. That's not the thing. The thing is just like how open we make ourselves. And that's what she really loves. Like Saraswati loves to have an open channel for that flow to come. And that's really the intention of our fire today and of this ceremony today, is to just like open up in us whatever we need to open.
I love the bringing that element of nature and the river, like I feel like she is the river, and like and again in so many right, and in so many traditions it's like nature is a literal goddess, like the river is a goddess. You contact the water of a river, you're contacting the goddess. It's not like this metaphor, it's like there is that, and I think that that's true for all of our cycles of in our bodies, especially for women and people who bleed. It's like our blood is her. There's like this, and even if we're not in that, the ways that our body can produce fluids, the ways that saliva comes into our mouth when we're feeling really safe and supported in our bodies, You know, like there's something about that, the ways that our eyes fill up with tears, you know, like there's something very natural in the body's impulse to express through water, that, you know, is also connected to us being resourced and finding safety within. So I
I
love
mean,
these kind of intersections of, you know, the body and nature and how we can worship both, you know, as her.
like Saraswati literally means the one that is flowing, is what it means in Sanskrit. But that first part, Saras, yeah, it means flowing. But what it literally means is it could mean a lake, it can mean a stream, or it can mean any flowing water. So it's so connected to that for sure.
Beautiful. Somebody was asking earlier for this the song, the hymn that you sang. They asked earlier and I forgot. They were wondering what the name of it is,
I don't even know. It's
like, or
like
where it comes
it's
from, I
like
guess. And
it's just we can send it to them somehow. Is that possible?
yeah, if you copy and paste
Yeah,
it and then
yeah,
send
yeah.
it to me, I'll
I
send
don't
it in the
know.
replay.
I don't know how to. It's just the Saraswati Stotram, but there's like lots of different ones probably. The what was I going to say?
Also, knowledge and wisdom. I feel like we should just touch on that and then do the practice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, knowledge.
Just touch
Yeah,
on knowledge and
yeah,
wisdom, but it's like, because it's like it does include the mind. You know what I mean? Like people in this space are always like, everyone has this idea that like their mind is bad, you
yeah.
know, which is just like not true, especially in tantra. So it's like I just wanted to speak to
Yeah,
that a little
look,
bit.
we're back of the bus, kids. If you haven't figured that out yet, but like in India, Saraswati is really associated with like school. You know, like at school at the beginning of the year, the kids take their pencils and pens and notebooks and textbooks and ask for Saraswati to bless their learning. I mean, that's what she, and in the arts also,
In the
you know,
arts,
but
yeah.
like for very formal arts typically. And I think that I like to be rebellious against that also because I come from this Saraswati order thing. And I think that I'm in some ways like a, you know, like a naughty child of that family or something.
But
And
you
I,
also have
and I like to de-emphasize it.
yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
And you know, you have a wealth of traditional teachings in you. Like that's what you do, you know,
Yeah.
is like share these traditional teachings
Yeah.
and then offer, you know, obviously ways to
Yeah.
translate them, you know,
Yeah.
for ourselves. But you do have this like really deep devotion to the actual teachings, you know,
Yeah.
with that, like, and are very specific
Yeah.
about that in a way that I do feel like is connected to that.
And wisdom is really different than knowledge. Also, that should be said because I was just thinking about just like arguing with scholars and stuff, or like how scholars really don't like my work, which I fully understand. But I know Valerie Carr. So coming back to this, so we put in there "Sage Warrior" by Valerie Carr. She's an incredible teacher and friend, and she is of the Sikh faith, and she's also a very cool radical activist. One of the most important voices right now, I believe. Sage Warrior is a book that she just came out with about Sant Sabai. It's the translation of Sant Sabai, which is about the Sikh tradition. And when Adriana was talking about poetry and the saints, you know, the Sikh tradition, we don't know this because like we've got the Yogi Bhajan Kundalini yoga thing, which is not Sikhism. It's this whole other kind of kabuki theater. It's a whole other thing. And then we don't know what is the Sikh religion. It's a beautiful mystical path. The origin of was a Mahasiddha. Guru Nanak was a Maha Yoga master. And their entire scripture is poetry. Their entire Guru Granth Sahib, it's called, their entire sacred text are just love songs. The most beautiful poetry from like centuries of masters. And they sing about ecstasy and love and pleasure. And it's amazing. It's beautiful. But one of the things that Guru Nanak said in that is he says, more important than truth is truth lived. And I read that in her book yesterday on my retreat, and I was like, oh my God, I just want to like put that on a billboard and like as a central thing. But that was not said, that was sung. and how important it can be for the wisdom and knowledge, I believe, to be broken out of the ivory towers of learning and patriarchy and division, and put into the experience of wisdom, put into the experience of like transformation, put into like, if it doesn't actually bring you closer, then it's not wisdom from my point of view, when it comes to spiritual teachings.
I love that. Mirabai Starr always shares this, like Teresa of Avila, who was another mystic poet, and how when she was getting basically indicted for having visions of God and then writing, speaking about them, and when they asked her, how does she know, like, if they're true, like, how does she know basically if they're like messages and visions from God, or if she's basically insane, and like, how does she know the difference? And that's what she would say, is that if it brings me closer to that love, then that's what it is, and
But
like,
also it's just so
trusting
funny
that, and like,
it's so funny because like the messages were all things about like love and like God loves you and stuff like that, and they're like, are you insane, or is this a message from God? It's not like she was getting these messages like, I should store my poop under my bed, and, like I should eat my fingernails every day. It wasn't, they were like things that are like so beautiful, and so oftentimes the saints would say these things. They'd be like, this is
blasphemy.
insane.
I mean, forever. That's every prophet
is
saying, all the way
blasphemy.
back to Jesus. I mean, obviously, that's
Way before,
and way before that too. Yeah. So, okay. On that note, but also, I want to say one little last thing connected to what you were just saying, Harshada, and for everybody, is like, this is also where, like, when you think about, like, when I think about Indian classical music, or when I think about chanting, and like over the years, especially in the beginning of my journey, coming into like, using my voice and having these, this healing, occur, even just listening to, like, I think that there is like a devotion, and that is like, it does help us focus. You know what I mean? I mean, it for me, and like, it just absolutely does. It's like really getting into like, and focus, but also like make the things that we know are going to be aligned for us like happen. Because it's very easy, especially in our modern world, to like not focus on love and truth, and very easy to just like, for any of us to just like fall into like trusting and believing our wounding. But our body, like in Indian classical music, when you listen to it, it's like you feel it in your body, in your being, right? When you listen to Kabir, singers, that's one, part of the tradition that, I learned about in India, and, they sing these Kabir poems, right? And Kabir was a great mystic saint poet as well. And you can feel it, even though I don't know what they're saying, and with words, it like, it brings me to tears, right? I mean, this is true for so many of these mystic poet saints. And so, this is really in honor of them, and in honor of all the traditions that have, withstood all kinds of horrific, things, to be able to continue sharing this truth that God is love and that God is within. So this is like a really, to me, it feels like a very big, beautiful way to honor that, and to honor the protection, and to honor, like what you said, of banishing out, what isn't in service to that is within us, and that's within our, our homes, and do the mantra.
Capacity is a thing where, we're learning this word capacity and this concept of capacity within our nervous system and everything. I think it's so good. And that's so much of what it comes to when it comes to like this devotional focus that Adriana's talking about. And, one of the things that came through on my little retreat were a couple of ideas for my training that I'm going to do this year, the Maha Yoga Advanced Training, that I used to do. And I used to do one of them, and the other one I've always wanted to do, but I've never done it, but we're going to do it this year. And one is because I saw that one of the people that's coming to India with us had posted on social media, she was making ghee. I don't know if anyone here has ever made their own ghee from butter, but it's this incredible process. And the ghee that you make, like homemade ghee, there's nothing like it. It's so delicious. But it's a long process. And you can't just like let it go. You have to be there and attend to it the whole time. That's one of the things that I'm going to have you do if you're in the training. The other thing is there's a kind of Indian classical music called Drupad. And the songs are very long. You know, they're like 45 minutes or an hour long for one song. And a lot of it is just it's just the singer just like doing the notes of the raga so slowly and so long. And that part usually lasts like 25 or 30 minutes of the 45 minutes. And to be able to sit there and be with that and listen to it, not as background music, but like actively listen to it and allow it to penetrate you. That's, you know, ultimately what we're doing. It takes capacity. And that's the thing that like capitalism, our modern life, the patriarchy, all of the kind of distractions of our modern world and the digital kind of sewer that we're all like swimming in, they put holes in our capacity. They make it so that we just don't have more than a half a second to focus on anything. And, you know, Saraswati and working with Saraswati, part of that is like invoking the ability to come back and let that capacity kind of repair itself to be able to receive her flow.
Yeah. And also enter, you know, those doorways, you know, what you were just saying with that music, it's like to activate the inner knowing within us that we can enter, you know, when we have that connection, that we can enter that as a portal into a wider capacity. So it's not just dependent on, you know, what we think, you know, but it's dependent on something that's much deeper. So the mantra is Om. You can repeat it after me if you want to do the mantra. It's Om. I'm.
A-I-M.
A-I-M. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Saraswatiye. Maybe you can say it because I don't ever have the right pronunciation.
Yeah, it's like Saraswatiye. So Saraswat, yay.
Saraswat.
Saraswatiye.
Yay. And then Namaha.
Namaha.
So, you know, the mantra is, you know, it's like, I always love this image of like imagining putting our bodies down on the ground, like arms outstretched, like on the earth, you know, really offering over whatever it is that's within us, whatever it is that's within our worlds, you know, offering everything over to her, with deep, deep love and reverence and passion and desire, you know, all of it. I feel like there's so much passion actually in Saraswati, even though it's not probably traditional, but I think when she's entered me in the ways that she has, you know, there's just like there's such a, can be this like flurry of passion also, that gets ignited. So, so you can prepare, just by having your, thank you, having your candle.
We're putting sandalwood paste and kumkum on our foreheads as a way to sort of like enter into the ritual space.
And Harshit, I made that kumkum actually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to use it today too, because it's like a Saraswati tribute that I didn't even realize.
And just let your body move a little bit and make some spirals. You can also move the whole time. You don't have to be still until, you know, the end will invite stillness. If you're feeling very still, you're welcome to do the mantra from that place. But you can also, you know, take a moment and just get up and stretch. And we'll just take a couple deeper breaths to begin. So you can take a nice long, smooth inhalation in through your nose and just hold the breath for a moment at the bottom of the inhale. And then exhale gently out of your nose. And then do that again. Take a nice long inhalation in through your nose and pause at the bottom of the inhale.
Sadashivaya. Ya Devi Sarvabhuta
Soften gently into the pause and then exhale out of your nose. And just feel the ground and the earth below your body.
Namastasye, namastasye,
I'll do that again.
namastasye.
Nice long, smooth inhalation in through your nose, holding at the bottom of the inhale. Letting your natural exhale release. And just pausing and tuning in with your own throat, your heart, your solar plexus, your navel, the middle of your pelvis, the parts of your body touching the earth. And just let the mantra come from your body, from your third eye, your lips, your tongue. And you could do the mantra out loud with us. You can also take it in silence. And we have some rose petals and rice that we'll be offering. And ghee. Ready?
We're going to do 108.
Do Ganesha really quick. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. 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 Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha.
Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha.
Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om
Saraswatiye
Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha.
Last two.
Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatiye Namaha.
That's all I want to do. Are you getting downloads, everyone? Just like open yourself to what wants to flow in right now. Take notes if you need to, if you don't want to forget.
And thank you, Goddess, for giving us this flow that is our life force, our existence. And may your fire purify any identification that isn't serving in the realms of us being artists, us being those who are here to tend with creative solutions. And may your warmth transmute any identities and unhelpful ideas that we have about ourselves as artists, as community members, as parents, as lovers.
May our creative endeavors have the logistical and financial and structural support that they need to be sustained and thrive and shared with as many people as deserve our gifts.
And let's just all of us together just kind of take a moment to just honor the silence, right? Like this is deep winter time where we are, the winter solstice is coming in a couple weeks, and just like how much we need that silence with the elements. There's something so powerful about worshiping and honoring the sacred fire as our life force and just listening to her sound, her music.
I don't know if you can hear, but this fire is like the most crackly fire ever.
So it's a song, right? And like that song nurtures the song in us. And to just, really let all of us take a moment to just follow that flow to like the source of where that music is in you in this moment. Like there's somewhere inside each of us where that flow is, you know, both emerging from and returning to. And every human being and every plant and every animal, every planet, everything that is in this rhythmic nature, this song of existence, pulsing with aliveness and desire and belonging, and just allowing us to honor that source without judgment, without the need to identify with it, even just to like receive it, like the gift, like the miracle that it is. And may that source protect everyone in every world. And may that source free all beings of suffering. And may we do our part as devotees of this love and liberation that is our true nature. Just letting that sound purify how we hear, how we listen. Let the warmth purify our voice, our hearts, our wombs, where everything is birthed from. Her womb. Her darkness. And let's just take a few of those breaths like we did to begin, just taking a longer, deeper inhalation with a gentle pause at the bottom. Exhaling out of our nose. And again, long inhalation through your nose. Pausing and just softening into the pause. And then exhaling. One last time, you can wiggle your toes as you inhale. And pause. With deep reverence and humility to each of you for showing up and doing this ceremony with us, to the flow of your life and your existence.
Tense.
Thank you so much for being here with us and being in ceremony. It's, you know, like I said, the song, the impulse to create, that's so natural, you know, that for a lot of really good reasons, you know, we discount and we and also are just discouraged, you know, from our authentic expression. And a lot of those roots are connected to things that are really deep, you know, so the stuckness is a part of our experience of flow. in this work. It's not something separate from, it's not exiled, it's something that is brought to the fire, whether it's the fire of our body, the literal fire that is sacred, that is the goddess here. And we're just curious, what did you notice? What came through for you? I always have this memory that I forget until I do Saraswati sadhana or practice of, this time, the first time I made a friction fire, with a bow drill, and just like, putting the coal into the kindling, and how you have to use your breath to create the light, that is like this relationship between fire and air and the kindling of the earth, and how all the elements come together to create the spark of light, right, and of life, that emerges seemingly from nowhere, right, but is actually this perfect, combination of both surrender and effort. When you're doing this with the bow drill, if you're like really over efforting, it doesn't happen, right? There's like this really potent medicine of like learning, like, what is it like to surrender even while I'm efforting? Because also if you don't do it at all, then it doesn't happen, right? If you're not, it's like, it's a lot of effort, but it's like you can feel how when your ego is like, oh, I'm gonna do this, it's like it doesn't happen. It like literally won't happen. Like she is just like, nope, like, so there's like such a beautiful learning in that for all of us, right? That we can take into, whatever it is that we're working with in our lives right now. How do we continue to put in effort, but, from these deeper places of surrender, and remembering that as well as we're showing up in the ways that we are.
You probably don't know this, but did you know that traditionally those yagnas would be started with a bow drill?
Oh, yeah.
Like in the really, really super traditional ones, they don't use matches. They use a bow drill to kindle the fire.
So good.
With mantras and everything.
Yeah.
The priest does that.
So good. Yeah. So we'd love to hear from you. You can just unmute, or you can raise your hand. Definitely write down, anything that's coming up in your body, physical or emotional sensation. But we'll take about 13 minutes just to tune in with the community, or any prayers that you want to just practice speaking. Saraswati is it's like relearning how to pray, because many of us have a lot of wounding around that. So, even just allowing yourself to be in that space is totally welcome. Or any questions, that arise, we're here for you. Or any images, you can ask the fire for an image and share that.
Neck cracking as loud as a fire. God, I wish it would crack my neck.
Oh my God.
I needed this so much, loosening and opening in me, all my energies.
Oh my God. I went to the chiropractor the other day, and my jaw cracked in like this way that like it's a temporary thing, but it was like, holy shit, it changed my life for like 24 hours. I was very grateful. Somebody had their hand up, but I don't know where they went. You can just unmute also, just in case it's not working. The image of a cobra. Thank you for sharing that.
Very
Yeah.
auspicious.
I just wanted to say that while I was offering the prayers to the fire, the fire was consuming them so mightily, it was really beautiful.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for doing that, Alex. Yeah, I can't believe how noisy she is today. It's
Yeah.
makes sense, but didn't think about that. But I was like, oh, the song of existence. What else did you notice, or what's arising for you?
So I was the one that raised my hand and then put it down. I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this space. Yesterday, I didn't know it was going to be about Saraswati. I don't know if that was in the email or not. I think I seen the post on Instagram, and I put the email completely forgot about it. And then um, I just felt called to her yantra, and I started like drawing it and just getting in it. And then all of a sudden I was like, check your email. And I was like, oh yeah, this Tantra thing is happening tomorrow. Let me put it here on my phone so I don't forget it. Again, still didn't put any, like, didn't really read it, just put it there to like, don't forget. And I started doing one of her mantras yesterday with it, like right before bed. And um, right before this live, I was having today's like a Mercury Kazemi. So it's funny that I do feel Saraswati's energy with Mercury. And so when you said that, I was laughing. I was like, nobody really says this, but I've always kind of just felt that. And I is like one of my favorite like veggies to do because I feel like it breaks all the energies and gets you into the center of the Shishuma. Like
Yeah.
it's right in the center.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't do it like the way I really could do it because I don't want to break the phone or like hurt people's ears right now. But um, so anyways, we get into the fire and I was getting like certain it was very relaxing, but I was getting certain like needs to release certain connections. And immediately as I was feeling it pop in my body and then it will pop in the fire. And I was like, oh yes, like, yes. Like, and then I was getting like other downloads and yeah, we're just on point when the vocalization and I loved how simple that mantra was, and I could feel it in my body, and I just wanted to express gratitude, and the synchronicity couldn't even be any more on point with everything. Like there, like I said, I was having a conversation with somebody prior to, and it just the disconnect wasn't there. So the voice message went from recording to like it got quote unquote lost in transmission there, and it didn't it just sent like a silent message, you
Yeah.
know. And I knew I was just like, I'm gonna release it. But the person literally just texted me after this, like as I'm talking to you, they just text me saying, I love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew it was like purifying any disagreements and
Thank you for
so
saying.
thank you.
I was really sensing this, like the value. I want to know your name also, if you don't mind sharing it. We want
Angelic.
to. Okay. And if you don't, do you mind sharing where you are in the world or even just generally?
I'm in Florida, United States, Florida.
But yeah, thank you for sharing that all. And I was really feeling that too. Like it was so releasing and relaxing, like just like in my body. And it was just like, oh, the silence, it's like that, like we're so conditioned that like we think creativity is outputting only, when it's like, oh, it's like so much. It's like our India pilgrimage. It's like we spend so much time in silence and stillness. And like all this Shakti, all this energy, it comes from that, even our dance, like our body temple wild dance that we do comes from like deep meditation and stillness, that I was doing for years. You know what I mean? It's like all the deeper inner stillness. So thank you for sharing. Okay, I see someone else, the shape-shifting priestess.
Mhm.
I don't
Hi. I wasn't sure if I was gonna get on here. That's awesome. Um I just felt like really inspired by the last person who shared and like really similar in the experience. And I thought that was awesome that we were kind of like tuning into similar things. Like she was talking about the popping. Yeah. She was talking about like the popping and like the releasing of these like, certain like connections too. And I felt that after the chants, I just noticed like this channel came through and I was able to like voice very clearly and also share very clear boundaries about how I felt in a connection. and like a past conversation I had with this person, it like didn't go the way I was like hoping it would go. And I felt like I just couldn't clearly convey how I was feeling. And it allowed the person to kind of like turn it into something that I feel like it wasn't. And that like upset me. And then I just like, I was able to like place these boundaries because like I was just kind of noticing an imbalance in a current connection that I have with like a male friend. And when I shared my feelings about something about this imbalance, they like they made it mean something that it wasn't. And like I was like, okay, that's on them based on where they are and their capacity to hold space. And so I just felt like after that, I was able to just very clearly share, like, oh, this is what I was actually noticing. And when then you tried to shift it to this, like, I was able to like place boundaries around that to be like, no, 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 you don't get to like shame my feelings. Like, all feelings point us to an unmet need. Like, your needs are just as important as mine, and mine are just as important as yours. Because I had been space folding a lot for this person, and then I felt like whenever it was my turn to kind of need like, you know, just like not even something big, just like a little bit of like, hey, I'm noticing this coming up.
Yeah.
That person did not have the same capacity I had. So it was also just like a lesson in grace as well too. But also giving me the opportunity to like voice those boundaries and how I was really feeling.
In like
that, yeah.
classical Mercury retrograde kind of a
Yeah.
thing. That's
Yeah.
me too, where you know it's like I came out of in silence during my little retreat, and I came back, and it was like speech was so like loud or something, and I could see I would just say something, and by the time it got into this ear, it was something totally different, and then her reaction would come back, and by the time it got into this ear, and like she was like,
Oh, wow.
and I was like, how is that me? You know, and like a really classical thing of like
Yeah.
during when the Mercury energy is less abundant,
Yeah.
to just slow way down and
Yeah.
like, just give a ton
Yeah.
of spaciousness.
Thank you for sharing
Wanna hear
that.
from
We have,
Charlemagne.
yeah, I want to hear from Charlemagne. And
Thank
also
you.
just like, I love how much the relational
Charlemagne.
realm, what is your name also, or unless you like going by shape-shifting
Oh.
priest?
That's my kind of business name. My name's Alexandria.
Alexandria. Okay, thank you so
Wonderful.
much. Yeah, and I just love how much the relational realm that comes through, right, with this like, you know, communication and creativity. I mean, of course, so much of that gets healed in our relationship to her. And also like, I was also just feeling like the identifications, you know, like in any relationship, whether it's to ourselves or another, it's like our identity and the other person's identity becomes so solidified, you know, in this way that like can be really beautiful and healing for our inner children. And then it also does the opposite, you know, it's really confining, it's really constricting, it creates a lot of imbalance, like to use the word, you know, that you just said. And I love to have the opportunity, like I was really feeling that with her. I was like, oh, to just like let go of like who we think we are in relationship and who we think the other is, you know, and for some reason that was also coming through for me.
This term came up in terms of like the work that I do with people is, you know, it's sometimes called like spiritual midwifery. And this other term came up of being an ego death doula.
Yeah.
It's like in the deep work, there is ego death, and how, you know, that requires some support, a particular kind of support.
There's some Dark Goddess doulas here right now in our Dark Goddess doula training. That's what we're doing. Charlemagne, hello. You'll be the last share. Thank you.
Greetings. Thank you. Thank you both very much. Lots of little threads. First one is the gratitude for the fire. The fire felt so incredible in terms of just an entity itself, but also Saraswati is so important to me. So I got up today. Today is actually special to me. It's my solar return today. So she is on my altar. So hearing her, the first thing I heard was her, right? So I felt deeply called and gratitude, because this is exactly what I'm thinking on every year when it is this day. It's looking at what I can put into the fire so that I do not bring it into the coming year. And so that idea of thinking about the ego death and being at this point of life at 59, we think, for me anyway, a lot about, there's a lot to look back on as well as to think forward on. And so I thank my younger self for bringing me to this place. And I thank yourselves, everyone here, for all of the grace and the work that it takes to show up every day to the fire that's in our heart, the fire that is our spirit, what we're here to do, and just tremendous gratitude to the both of you and this community, because I feel a huge evolutionary process is taking place at this time, and you speak on it regularly, and to continue to hold it up and give it life and words and energy. So thank you from the deepest cellular and spiritual aspect of my being for this circle today. What a great thing to be doing. And just
Yeah, and like
Thank you, Charlene.
for sure,
Appreciate you.
I'm in my 50s also, and there's something about the recognition of the preciousness of time, you know, where it's, you know, we still have plenty of time, God willing, but it's not like we just have like, you know, that expression, fuck you money. It's like you just have so much money, you can just like spend it however. We don't have fuck you time anymore. I mean, maybe we never did, but just become aware, and it's like, okay, what do I really want to create? Like what is really worth me putting my energy and my effort into, and what isn't?
Yeah.
And it's like that's a deep and, like, I'll just say, poignant kind of reflection. And so many happy returns of this day for you.
And thank you for sharing your Sagittarius. Like everything you just shared was just such a transmission of your, you know, the genius of Sagittarius and the fire and the spiritual, you know, like bringing that spiritual element into, you know, this realm and in community. And, you know, thank you for always bringing that every time you're here. I just feel that with you, even if you're, you know, sharing or not sharing. It's like, you know, we really value you and value that and value you as a teacher, you know, even if, yeah, like we're all here as co-teachers and leaders and people who are, you know, anchoring into this, what you called, you know, that evolutionary process, which is so powerful. So thank you for articulating it, because, yeah, just receiving it from you. So thank you.
thank you both deeply, and everyone here. Have a beautiful day. Thank
Yeah, you too. Enjoy. I hope you have lots of pleasure for the rest of your day and life.
Thank you. I hope to do that dance and say these words to you hand to heart someday. That is truly one of my wishes for this year. So I want to put that in here as a seed planting for that wish.
Yes, we need to get our chests touching. For sure, I feel that. Yeah. Yes. And Sid is saying, what a solar return on a Mercury Kazemi. Yeah, powerful. And thank you for reminding us that it's a Mercury Kazemi. I was reading something about it, and then I always forgot on that. Anyways, there's just so many things to say. But I love that happened and that we did Saraswati, and a Mercury Kazemi feels, of course, very blessed and auspicious. So
Definitely.
sending you all lots of creative juice and nourishment and deep rest and stillness and, you know, all of it for this season and for the rest of the year.
Is this our last one before we go to
Yeah.
India? Wow.
No, well, yeah. Well, the next one we're going to do in India. We're not going to be doing this kind of fire, but we're going to have a candle, and we're doing a practice fire,
I'm just learning this.
an
now.
inner fire practice while we're in India. So that will be the next one. So please come, because we'll be on the land, and we'll do it a little different, obviously, because we're going to be in our hotel in Bombay. But it's very powerful.
When is it, out of curiosity?
January 2nd, I think. I don't know, it's like a couple
yeah,
days
yeah.
after, a few days after we
we
get
arrive,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, but yes, this is our last one for the year. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone out in the ethers and on the earth that have come to these this year. They just make them so special, is you and everyone who comes, you know. It wouldn't be that without you and without every person who's come over this year. And so, yeah, just feeling so grateful. And as far as I know, we plan to do them at least for the, you know, the first half or, you know, of next year. It feels really nourishing for me and for Harshita as well. So we're going to continue doing that as far as we know for 2025 as well. So let us know if you need anything. You can email us. Yeah, we're here. We work with people all the time in different ways. So if you're ever wanting more support, just reach out, send us an email and let us know. And we'll see you soon. If you want to unmute to say bye, we'd love to just hear your voices as we go.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
See you in the new year.
Bye.